I remember a time when being called a blogger wasn't exactly a bad thing. I was, still am a blogger. I started blogging in the mid 2000s. At first, I tried putting up an online journal using hard coded HTML pages. Then I moved to platforms like Tabulas and LiveJournal since they were more convenient. I eventually registered my alexmaxima.com domain in 2006, where I set up a WordPress installation. And I filled that blog with all sorts of crap, takes on politics, language, sports, and personal stories. It's still up to date, but it's mainly an online business card now with a photography portfolio and an archive of old posts. Real life happened, and I never really got around to writing. My most recent entry is actually more than a year old now. There was also a time that I was a professional blogger. I managed several but now defunct blogs for a US based blog network, and I wrote life hacks, tech guides, car reviews, and motoring tips. And in some way, I miss those days. Granted that my life was a whole lot different then, but there's a bunch of things that, as a writer and content producer, have me wanting to go back to those simpler days. And the fundamental idea behind the blog remains true. Blogs were and still are channels for self-publishing. Bloggers even then had the capability to put up whatever they want unleashed into the world, whether it's informed commentary or just rants and raves, I guess. The old fogey in me would say that in those good old days, there was a certain level of quality in the online discourse, especially in the local blogosphere. Surely we all had our niches and domains, and we wrote about the mundane as well. But at least to my recollection, blogs then were more of soapboxes for the intelligentsia and not the swell buckets that social media pages are these days. I think it helped that blogging was a bit more exclusive then. Internet connectivity was still limited, social media was still in its infancy, registering domains and renting server space entailed costs, and setting up a self-hosted blog required a degree of technical knowledge. I guess that quality came naturally since bloggers were mainly a tech-savvy and educated bunch. And there was also a sense of editorial responsibility since some of the bloggers back then fancied themselves to be as citizen journalists. Sure, there was also toxic banter, rants, and snark were commonplace, but it's not as bad as what we have now with all the falsehoods and deliberate disinformation. Or, I don't know. It's nice to wax romantic and reminisce, but I could be wrong in my recollection. Maybe I'm just dismayed and frustrated by the discourse practices today that my hindsight has beer goggles. Because boy, how things have changed more than a decade and a half since. Producing content is stifling in today's environment. I miss those days when I could just get to write about anything and I could be spontaneous and irreverent. More than what you hear from me now. I could publicly post political commentary without any fear of reprisal. I could slam companies for their crappy products and customer service. I can call it as I see it and not worry about getting slapped with a lawsuit. These days, you have to be really careful with what you write or say since cyber libel is now criminal. And everyone's so touchy that any negative opinion can be considered libelous. Also, given how despotic our government has become, writing scathing political commentary, maybe literal suicide. It's tough. Now that I've shifted to video, my ideation process still remains similar to how I used to blog. There's just a bit more work and a tad more restraint. While I still get to curse and rant about things, I do find myself being a lot more guarded. Granted, my circumstances have changed a lot since the 2000s. So, being a blogger now also carries with it a lot of bad mojo. The labels become synonymous to being a purveyor of disinformation and a prostitute for spin, a troll basically. I don't know if anyone from the good old days will still be proud saying that they're a blogger. So yeah, screw those people who fuck things up for us. And I wonder if it's too late to take the term blogging back, or is the label forever lost to be chucked into the same bin as, vlogging or being a YouTuber or an influencer for that matter. I also get to think that if ever you get a much needed change in governance, that online discourse will also get a renaissance. That hey, a man can just dream. And for now, I'll just be fine being that angry guy on the internet, blogger or blogging be damned.